Welcome and thank you to all the constituents and community advocates and leaders for joining me this evening. Today is about connecting with our constituents from San Bernardino County to discuss the epidemic of youth homelessness. As a former San Bernardino County supervisor and current chair of the Assembly Select Committee on Youth Homelessness in San Bernardino County, many of my legislative priorities aim to uplift, and empower those most vulnerable in our communities, including tribal foster youth and the unhoused. This year, I proudly introduced a bill to help tribal foster youth. That was AB 1862. And last year, I successfully championed AB 873 and AB 1055. Also dealing with Native American foster children. All three measures will bring support to tribal communities and ensure that these children receive the same legal and educational benefits and protections as other foster care kids. Most recently, I introduced AB 2663 to create the California Interagency Council on Homelessness. It would create a 5-year pilot program for LGBTQ youth at risk of experience homelessness or already homeless. It is designed to provide support to help them and their families. They are the most vulnerable, and not only to homelessness, but also to other dangers. I am also a joint author with Assemblymember Ramos on AB 2325, the California Coordinated Homeless Response Act. It would create and streamline services while also helping to ensure the effective use is made of every tax dollar, and every program has solution based on evidence of success. AB 2325 would implement a universal application for service and housing providers and local governments, provide housing opportunities to individuals released from prisons, hospitals, or mental health facilities and other institutional settings, so they do not end up living on the streets without services. Align existing state programs around a core set of standards for housing and housing-based services that follow evidence-based interventions proven to end homelessness. Also, identifying duplicative programs that contain overlapping goals and missions, and make recommendations to the legislature about how to increase alignment across these programs. I hope you can look at these bills and I could garner your support as these bills move forward. I have also moved forward with a budget request. My most recent budget request would call to action a $5 million allocation for the development of at-risk youth, which aims to improve the quality of life for at-risk and underrepresented students in San Bernardino County. This program diverts at-risk youth not considered college-bound by creating community-centered pathways through relationship building between parents, educational institutions, and partner organizations. And also, as the chair of the Assembly's Military and Veterans Affairs Committee, I will be working on a budget action to address the pandemic of homeless veterans throughout the state. These actions include a $250 million in one-time funding request towards the Veterans Housing and Homeless Prevention Program. And this is important because this includes a large percentage of veterans between the ages of 18 to 26 that are at risk of homelessness or experiencing homelessness. I've also advocated and moving forward to add a $6 million allocation in one-time funds to the Certified Veteran Service Provider Program to provide California veterans eligible through eligible discharge upgrades with legal and administrative casework support. This is important because we have, through our last point in time count, identified over 175 unsheltered veterans between the ages of 18 and 24 years of age in San Bernardino County. Today, I am joined with an elaborate group of panelists that will discuss the issues centered around homelessness. I am joined with Deputy Sheriff Mike Jones, who leads the HOPE team in San Bernardino County with an outreach to our homeless population. Also, through One Step Transitional Youth Center program manager, Andre, better known as Dre from TAE, and Student Services Counselor, Cali Guillory from the Department of Rehabilitation. And we also have Miss Brenda Dowdy, our homeless education project manager with San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, and peer support advocate, Kevon Lee from Children's Deserve Success. Our first panelist is Deputy Sheriff Mike Jones, who is one of the founding members on the Homeless Outreach Protective Enforcement Team, better known as the HOPE team. Through the HOPE program and the HOPE team, Deputy Jones has helped more than 2,500 people with resources that tackle homelessness and has provided a better way of life for those individuals. Join me in welcoming Deputy Sheriff Mike Jones.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Thank you for having us, and glad to share about San Bernardino County Sheriff's HOPE team around youth homelessness and how that affects what we run into. So we're a street outreach team that works countywide to link individuals or families with that are homeless with services. And for youth homeless, we often don't find too many unsheltered youth under 18. Most of ours are 18 to 24, and often with law enforcement, they may say they're going to a friend's or things like that. So most of the homeless youth that we run into are those of families. Over the past several years, we have seen an increase in families, especially through these times of COVID, that have increased the number that we've ran into both by phone call or out on the street, living in vehicles in the community around San Bernardino County. So those challenges are difficult because often the homeless families with the children, they don't know where to go. They don't know what services might be available. They don't all have TAD assistance and things like that. So our goal is really linking them to services at those locations throughout the county to ensure that the children aren't sleeping on the street, helps them with their school and as a family. So we certainly, use that to address. Some of the difficulties is San Bernardino County is one of the top communities in the country for poverty levels, which affect a lot of our youth that are homeless with their families. And they live in their cars, and then getting to services, getting linked with that service, and the wait times. So we really have advocated towards linking them with the services directly. A lot of them aren't aware of housing support program that might be through the welfare offices or other family providers in the community. The other challenge is that the resources, often these children fall under McKinney-Vento, so they don't qualify for most of the homeless services under the federal guidelines of homelessness. So the number of kids and the number of dollars that goes towards McKinney-Vento is much smaller than that of homeless related dollars that the county or the providers of our county receive throughout a calendar year for funding. So those families, often affect our school district, our traditional age youth centers. We have representatives of those here today to share about that. So trying to link them with all those different services is often, they don't know which direction to start or which direction to go to start linking with those people. Also, we have a culture in San Bernardino County that, to make ends meet, that they may live together. So those children are all homeless under the McKinney-Vento in that household because of rental cost and things like that. And then often families are already have family that might be on Section 8 or on providing assistance, that they may not be able to stay with family. So that makes it another difficult situation when you don't want to risk other family losing their residence because of arrangements that they may have through the numerous programs for youth and families. So that's our mainly who we work with is these families that are out on the street in their vehicles, sometimes hotel rooms that they find out about our program, and then just linking them to the great providers that we have in San Bernardino County to try to end youth homelessness. And then the 18 to 24, I think that's a big population that we don't talk about a lot, but those TAY-aged youth, that's some of our biggest growth in the point in time count over the past several years. And those numbers are also growing on a year-to-year basis. So those TAY-aged youth often are embarrassed about services or where to even start. So linking them and building the trust with them to be able to go to the TAY centers that are a great opportunity throughout the county, or into the STAY program, which I'm sure Dre will talk about shortly. So those are some of the things we do and some of those barriers that ultimately make it very difficult around the funding sources that are typically there for homeless that don't meet the McKinney-Vento for our youth homeless. Appreciate your time and thank you for having us.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Deputy Jones, for all the work that you do with the HOPE team in making sure that we're proactively getting resources out to our homeless population in San Bernardino County and bringing a whole different approach from the policing aspect to the humanity component to our homeless that are out there in San Bernardino County. So thank you so much. And thank you to your whole team.
Appreciate it.
Late adolescence and early childhood can be a period of excitement, uncertainty, risk-taking, and resiliency for many young people. Today, we are joined by One Stop Transitional Aged Youth Center program managed by Dre from TAY. TAY, One Stop, helps young adults ages 16 to 25 focus on their goals for employment and career, community life functioning, educational opportunities, and living situations. Join me in welcoming Dre from TAY.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Ramos. I'm Andre Basu, better known AKA Dre from TAY. It's so good to be here and represent the One Stop Transition Age Youth programs. So I'm just going to go through my script and explain what the TAY centers are at, and hopefully I'll lead a little bit more information on what we do. The purpose of the One Stop Transition Age Youth TAY Center programs is to provide an integrated service to the unserved, underserved, and inappropriately served TAY youth in San Bernardino County. These youth may be emotionally disturbed, severely and persistently mentally ill, or at risk of high users of acute facilities, homelessness, at risk of homelessness, and caused by existing out-of-home placements, and have co-occurring disorders with a history of incarceration or institutionalization, and have significant function impairment. The Department of Behavioral Health supports 5 TAY centers in the county. They are located in each region of our county. The TAY centers provide integrated services to youth ages 16 to 25. The One Stop TAY centers targeted population are youth 200% below the federal poverty line with mental health concerns. 2 of our targeted populations are Latino and African American youth who are disproportionately and also represented in the juvenile justice system and in out-of-home placements of foster care and group homes and institutions. DBH is provided, and DBH stands for Department of Behavioral Health, has provided the one-stop TAY Center services since 2007. Youth access the one-stop TAY centers as walk-ins from the community or through referrals from our county or outside agencies, and also our other partnering TAY centers. We provide specific behavioral health services and activities at non-stigmatized safe zones, which are in the TAY centers. We provide a place to socialize and seek counseling, therapy in a safe, non-threatening environment. We also provide treatment and co-location of community services within the centralized locations, and we encourage access and family participation for all of our members also. The TAY centers are kind of modeled after the drop-in center model in an effort to improve TAY participation and allow our youth to selectively utilize the services needed to maximize their individual potential while living in the community, and or we prepare them to re-enter the community. The TAY centers provide a drop-in services, and these services, of course, provide employment, educational activities, housing, behavioral health, physical well-being, drug and alcohol abuse, counseling, legal issues. All of them are trauma-informed activities we provide. The TAY Center offers a whole menu of services, which it would include a 24/7 access to a multidisciplinary team of behavioral health professionals, staff, and peer advocates. We do a whole lot of housing support. We have educational and vocational assistance and support within that multidisciplinary team. We do job search and coaching, skill building necessary for community life, recovery, and co-occurring specialized program supports. We have recreation activities, access to showers and laundry facilities, email and internet access. We also have a term that we use in behavioral health called full service partner, AKA FSP. Okay, these services are provided to seriously emotionally disturbed adolescents and youth with serious mental health disorders, as identified in the most recent edition of the DSM. And the things we include within that FSP is assessment, evaluation, targeted case management, collateral, crisis intervention, medication support services, plan development, therapy, rehabilitation. One of the things in closing I want to say about the One-Stop TAY Centers program funding is a combination. Our funding source is a combination of Proposition 63, which is the Mental Health Service Act, Medi-Cal, federal financial participation, and 2011 realignment funding. The TAY Center partners in the County of San Bernardino that we partner with is the Probation Department, Department of Rehabilitation, Children and Family Services, Workforce Development, the Superintendent of County Schools. And our primary goal for our youth is to help them become independent, staying out of the hospital or a higher level of care, reducing involvement in the criminal justice system, and of course, reducing homelessness. And that's kind of the overview of what all of our TAY programs do. And I'm going to be really happy to share all of the other programs we do when we get to the Q&A period. So that's Dre from TAY, the TAY Centers in San Bernardino, Yahoo. Thanks for letting me present.
Thank you, Dre from TAY. And me and Dre go back, as well as some of the other presenters. walked the streets in Chicago, New York. We've moved forward on a lot of the homeless youth task force in San Bernardino County. So our commitment to our homeless youth isn't something that's just new. We've been ingrained, so much so that we set forward the first point in time count of our homeless youth in San Bernardino County, not paid by any public money. We had to raise private funds, and now the point in time has put that into their point in time count to identify our homeless youth. So we've been engaged, and Andre from Tay speaks truth, and he's there to help and support everybody that's there. So thank you, Andre.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cali Guillory from the Department of Rehabilitation. Cali currently serves as a student service counselor for the Student Services unit, where she connects homeless youth, student populations, and young adults to the department services. She is proud to further the department's mission and goals of providing services and advocacy resulting in employment, independent living, and equality for individuals with disabilities within her local community and throughout San Bernardino County. Join me in welcoming Cali Guillory.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. I have a quick PowerPoint presentation I want to share with everyone, so you can kind of get a quick view of what our services are about and how we can better support our youth within our local communities. Once again, my name is Cali Guillory. I am a student services counselor. My team manager is Elizabeth Musgrove, and I work in the San Bernardino coverage area. So I'm really honored to be able to provide the services to the individuals that we serve. To give a quick overview of our services, the California Department of Rehabilitation administers the largest vocational rehabilitation program in the country. The vocational rehabilitation services are designed to help job seekers with disabilities obtain a competitive employment in integrative work settings. We also provide independent living services that may include peer support, skill development, advocacy, referrals, assistive technology services, transition services, and personal assistance services. We also provide consultation, counseling, vocational rehabilitation, educational supports, and we work in collaboration with community partners to assist the people we serve in gaining self-sufficiency and independence. And as I stated, I am a student services counselor, so I really focus on the students. That is the goal of our unit that we have here in San Bernardino. So some of our, technology, gotta love it. Some of our just to give you a little bit of our eligibility requirements for our student services, also known as the PE case type, they must be between the ages of 16 to 21 years old. There is no eligibility waiting period, which is a great thing. A lot of our students, especially our homeless youth, need to get access to resources and supports as quickly as possible. They must be enrolled in some type of educational program. It can be homeschool, it can be a general regular brick and mortar school. It can also be if they're in a trade school or an adult class. As long as it's an educational program, they are eligible. There's no official documentation of a disability that is required. They can have a 504 plan, an IEP, or the school official signature. So it's a pretty easy process for those that are interested in our services to get enrolled. In the student services case type, there are 5 core services that the students will be able to take advantage of. Self-advocacy, and we know within the community of those that have disabilities, our foster care youth, our homeless youth, this is a big area that there is definitely a deficit. And so self-advocacy is going to really work with them on learning how to get accommodations, getting access to the resources and supports that they need for their success, learning how to ask for those accommodations that are needed for their independence. We also talk about job exploration counseling, where our students are able to gain access to learning about the world of work. They're learning about the different job families. They're learning what it's going to take to get to that job, what type of education that they're going to need to get to that job. The next one is work-based learning experiences. And this is a great opportunity, especially for our homeless youth that may not have finances to help support them or get that next meal. So in these work-based learning experiences, they're given opportunities to have a paid work experience. It can go up to 300 hours. They can work in various settings that may be of interest to them. We go from restaurants to retail stores to different agencies within the community to really get our students access to those work-based experiences. The next one is post-secondary enrollment counseling. So here we really focus on the post-secondary after high school. What are their plans? Are they going into a college, a traditional brick and mortar college, or are they going to go into a trade school or a vocational school? So these are things that we'll sit down, we'll talk about. How are they going to pay for those classes? How are they going to get access to and from? And these are all the things that we will sit down and discuss with the student. The last one is work readiness training, and this is preparing the student for the world of work. They're going to learn social skills, communication skills, learning how to complete a resume and an application, learning how to do a cover letter, dressing for the interview, knowing how to conduct yourself in an interview. So these are all the skills that they will learn under the student services case type. The next one is the vocational rehabilitation case type. And in this vocational rehabilitation case type, it's a little bit more in depth and there's a little bit more requirements that are there. There is an up to 60-day eligibility requirement waiting period. However, we do expedited enrollment, and that makes it a lot easier when they have quicker access to the resources and supports they need. We have more successful outcomes. There will be a documentation of a disability that is needed. They must have an impediment to employment, and there is a 90 days to develop that individualized plan of employment. But as I stated before, we do move quicker through our process of getting the students enrolled into the VR program and getting them into plans so that we can better serve them. So just to kind of talk about what an individualized plan of employment is, there is an employment goal that is required. We do labor market research. We want to make sure whatever career field they're going into is going to be positive. We don't want them to go in something that's kind of like a dead career field and there's no level of success to be obtained. So we want to make sure that whatever field they choose to go into is going to be something that's consistent and keep them going. And then the services must be agreed upon between the counselor and the student or the participant to be successful in employment. Here are some of our resources that we have for our students and those that participate in our program. We have assistive technology, tuition and college assistance. We have cooperative programs. There's the Operations Center for the Blind. We have supported employment programs, disability access services, independent living services, entrepreneurial businesses. We have a whole department that works with students that may want to open up their own business. We work with them on how to develop those businesses. We do career counseling and information and referral services. And we work with a variety of different resources and vendors out there so that we can make sure that we are serving our consumers with optimal service. So I always talk about, and this is a big part of my job, where we talk about how we can provide collaborative services. So one of the things is that we can do is work in conjunction with local school districts, foster care agencies, Department of Behavioral Health. We've already connected with the TAY centers, our homeless shelters, and other entities that provide services to youth who are experiencing homelessness. We ensure that we provide that optimal service that gives access to education and employment opportunities to increase independence and to decrease the risk of ongoing generational poverty. And we also provide the youth with self-advocacy guidance to gain access to the needed supports and resources to increase their successful outcomes in their overall life. So as the little statement to the side says, is together, everyone achieves more. So those collaborative efforts are going to be what is going to help our students, our youth, our people that are out there really struggling. It's going to help them to be more successful and help them to live more independent lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's give her another round of applause there. Thank you for that much needed vital information. And those that are providing information, our staff will get those slides and put them up on our social media platforms. Thank you again. Homeless youth are an especially vulnerable group that account for over 3% of California's entire student population within our schools in the state of California. Working within the County Board of Supervisors in 2018, we identified a high percentage of those that were there. Working on the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools is Homeless Education Program Manager, Ms. Brenda Dowdy. Ms. Dowdy and myself have been very much engaged in our homeless youth population, so much so that I started to see her at different events that I went to. And it turned out that she was kind of stalking me to get my support on a lot of these issues. But we met and we had like minds on these issues. So we traveled to Washington, D.C., speaking up for our homeless youth. We even tried to tackle the HUD definition and the McKinney-Vento definition of homeless students and homelessness in San Bernardino County. And Ms. Dowdy, as the Homeless Education Program Manager, Ms. Dowdy works to ensure that children and families in San Bernardino County community receive all of the resources needed to achieve self-sufficiency and excel academically. And also another person that has worked tirelessly with us is Shani, another friend of ours that continues to be out there. And if you see her out there, she's out in the park feeding some of the ducks in her off time. So let her know that I highlighted her in this program. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Brenda Dowdy.
Thank you so much, Assemblyman James Ramos, for having me here this evening. I want to first by thanking my superintendent for allowing me to be here and allowing me to step out of that box to service our McKinney-Vento students. Me and my small but mighty team cover the entire county of San Bernardino, ensuring and removing barriers for our homeless youth. San Bernardino County is over 20,000 square miles. They're bigger than many states. And we currently have over 25,600 homeless kids. Before the pandemic, we had over 32,000. So that's about 6,000 kids that are not accounted for because of the pandemic. Like Deputy Jones said, when the pandemic hit, people didn't want people to stay with them because they were afraid they were going to bring COVID. So they had to move on. And with that, people were being displaced. We were disconnected from school because we couldn't do home visits and go to their homes, to the shelters or to the hotels to see if they were still there. So we want to make sure that we're able to provide services. Every school district in our county has a homeless liaison from preschool through college. We have a point of contact that if any kid arrives to any school district, they will receive services and to assist them with transportation needs or to remove any barriers that they may have. What sometimes we don't understand is that our McKinney-Vento kids come with different needs. Some kids don't come to school because they don't have shoes. Some kids don't come to school because they don't have clothes. And that's why we have our liaisons, our point of contacts that can assist them by partnering with our community partners to remove those barriers, whether it is getting donations of backpacks and school supplies or scholarships for kids to attend college. That's what many of our liaisons do, as well as make sure that they're receiving all that they need to get their academics and achieve within the education system. We also empower our youth. We empower our youth to advocate for themselves. You know, like Assemblymember Ramos and Deputy Jones said, we've been to Capitol Hill to talk to the legislative body to help change laws for our youth. And we will continue to advocate for them at those levels and many other levels. As I said, we partner with everybody. You know, I know sometimes they see me and it's like, I attended a meeting, I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to, because I don't want to answer any of the questions that we may have later. But I attended a meeting where we had a billionaire that came to town to pay for colleges for our foster and our kids of incarcerated parents. And I was invited to that meeting. And as Mr. Ramos said, I'm not a stalker, but I do make sure that my presence is known so that my kids can get served. And so I asked him, I said, well, what about our McKinney-Vento youth? He was like, well, what is that? So I explained to him, and at that time we had 36,000 homeless kids in San Bernardino County. And so what he did is he put $1 million in different universities, Cal State, Chapman, and Laverne, for our kids to go tuition free. And before that meeting was over, I already had applications coming in because he said we can include our McKinney-Vento students. We had several kids graduate last year. This year, we have about 11 or 12 that are going to be graduating from those universities debt-free. So we know that collaborating, partnering, stocking pays off. And as Dre said, you know, Deputy Jones said, there's a lot of money coming in for different populations, but there's not very much funding coming in for our McKinney-Vento students for the education system. And I know, Assembly Ramos, you have been a champion for us with our Homeless Youth Task Force and getting us funding for our street outreach that we were doing with the youth. And so I'm just going to ask you if you can continue to be a champion for us, because we need funding to come into our liaisons at the school districts so that we have enough staff to support. You know, because McKinney-Vento is pretty much unfunded mandate. We're required to do all this by law, but there's not any funding. We do get some sprinkles from federal funding, but we don't get any money from the state to support our McKinney-Vento youth. So if you could be that champion, I won't call any other names, but we would greatly appreciate it. And like I said, I don't want to talk too much because I know we have some question and answers that we're going to do at the end.
Well, thank you, Ms. Dowdy, for those words. And by all means, get us the information so that our office could continue to advocate for our homeless youth populations there. So go ahead and reach out to my staff. They are on the call. I'm sure they'll share their information if you don't already have it. By all means, let us know how we can help. And bringing everything full circle as far as the resources that are out in our community, and continuing to have elected people continue to be advocacies and advocate for resources for our homeless youth population. Our next speaker is Kevon Lee, and we are fortunate to be joined by peer support advocate Kevon Lee of Children Deserve Success. Inspired by his own experiences growing up, Kevon has advocated for anti-bullying, education, and at-risk youth on both localized county and statewide levels. Join me in welcoming Kevon.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited because I get to do what I love, and I love speaking and inspiring, empowering educators, youth, just anybody under that umbrella, because I know what the power of my voice could bring to the education system. So I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about my story and just bring some insight of some of the things I've been through. So growing up, even before I even began, I remember somebody told my mother that your baby's name would be known all over the world. But at this time, my mother never knew she was pregnant because 1, she was 35, 2, she was homeless, and 3, she was on drugs. So she didn't expect to be pregnant. But sure enough, when she went to the doctor said, yes, you're 6 months pregnant and your baby will be born with Down syndrome. So my mother instantly stopped the drugs. And then luckily, 3 months later, I was born healthy, 8 pounds. That's a blessing. But once I was born, of course, the drugs started again, because we all know that drugs is a constant cycle. It's a constant fight. It's a constant battle that is super hard just to get off of. And she dealt with that for years. And when I was 5 years old, I remember this day like yesterday. My mother and father, they wasn't the healthiest relationship. And to this day, they're still not married. They've been together 25 years. And on this night of August 2nd, I remember them arguing, and my mother told my mom to leave. I was 5 years old. My mother told my dad to leave. I was 5 years old. And when he left, I remember my mother saying, Kevon, go to your room, go to sleep. Everything's going to be okay. I said, okay. So I went to sleep and I hear a loud banging on the door. And then my mother goes to the door and I come out and I say, hey, Mom, what's wrong? She said, Kevon, I already told you, go back to your room. And I went back to my room. And so I came out a second time because I heard some loud things going on. And she said, Kevon, how many times I'm going to tell you to go back to your room? So I went back to my room. And this last time, as you can see, I didn't listen. I hear another loud banging on the door. And I'm like, okay, now I hear arguing. I'm like, okay, daddy's home. Let's go. Mom, dad, they're both here. So I go in the living room. She said, Kevon, I'm not going to tell you again. Go back to your room. So instead of going to my room, I decided to go lay on the couch right in front of the door. So I'm thinking my dad is right at the door because I hear this yelling and it was familiar. So all I remember was, I don't have your money, and the door slams. Next thing I know, I hear 2 loud gunshots and my mother gets shot. My mother gets shot and she's laying directly in front of me. The guy walks in, shoots somebody else, and then he points the gun at me. And when I look at him, I realize, whoa, this isn't my dad. This isn't my dad at all. And he looks at me and I'm thinking to myself, what's going to happen next? And at 5 years old, I didn't know exactly what was happening, but I know it wasn't good because I seen my mother on the floor with a puddle of blood, and I closed my eyes and I felt 2 blows to the body. And when I woke back up, I remember my shirt being as red as this word difference on my shirt. And I was like, Mom, what happened? She said, Kevon, don't worry, just try to rest right now, try to rest. And the ambulance came and they for sure took me off. And I remember these words from this EMT that I would never forget in my life. He took me out of the ambulance truck and I rose my hand. So I got shot in my left hand and my right side, and it came out my back. And I rose my right hand, and he said to me, put your hand down before you get shot again. I remember him and the other EMT laughing at a kid that just went through this, laughing at a kid that went through homelessness, laughing at a kid that was born into drug addicted parents, like I was some joke. I guess I wasn't that important. I guess I wasn't that important to my parents because they let this happen in my mind. And sure enough, in about 4 weeks, they said you will go home, but you won't go home to your mother because that is not a safe environment. So I went into the foster care system, and I was in that system for many years. But during that time, I was homeless because me and my grandmother, when she finally got me and my grandmother, it was hard for us to stay in a place because we couldn't afford rent. So I lived with family members majority of my K through 12 experience. So during this time, I never looked at college as something important. I never looked at education important. I thought, why would I want to go to college? Nobody in my family went to college. My dad and my mom didn't even graduate from high school. And I remember my 9th grade year, I asked my cousin, like, bro, why are you making bad grades? Now, I wasn't making the best grades, but I seen that his grades were so bad and it was making my grandmother upset. So I asked him, why are you making so many bad grades? And he said, being a nerd, that's lame. That's not cool. Why would I want to make bad grades? And he said, Kevon, you wonder why you get bullied so much. And so I decided not to take school serious until my sophomore year when I moved back to California from Mississippi because my grandmother gave me the option. She said, Kevin, I'm going to give you the option. Do you want to move to Atlanta, Georgia, or do you want to move to California? And I said, let's pack up our bags. We're going back to California. Now, I knew San Bernardino wasn't the safest, but I knew that I could have an opportunity out here. And during my sophomore year, early in the school year, my teacher asked the whole class, who wants to go to college? And at this time, I was a class clown. I told you my grades my freshman year wasn't the best because I didn't take school serious. Who wants to go to college? And me being me, a class clown, stood up on my desk, rose my hand, and I said, I want to go to college. And she said, you? College? Please. I don't think you guys heard me. Look, she said, you? College? Please. The audacity, I could not believe that a teacher would say this to me. Now, it was okay for everybody else in my life, my family members, friends to say that. But when it came to a teacher, she was supposed to be our hero. She was supposed to advocate for me. She was supposed to tell me no matter the circumstance, you could go to college, but instead she said, you college, please. And I took off my glasses, I threw them across the classroom. I ran outside that door, I slammed it, and I went into the principal's office. And the principal said, Kevon, I'm not going to write you up, but tomorrow go in that classroom, be on your best behavior. I said, yes, sir. The next day I walked into that classroom. I walked up to her. Now she was probably scared. I walked up to her and I said, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I won't go to college. Maybe college isn't for me. My family didn't go to college, sure enough. But I would start right now, right here, today, by getting an A in your class. So I started taking school serious. I did whatever it took. I went to classes early. I went to school early before school even started. I'm talking about at 6 o'clock a.m. to go to tutoring because I just didn't get it. But I knew that if I put in the work, something has to come out of it. Something has to. And so I started making better grades. And then my senior year, I took her again because I wanted to prove to her that I was college material. So I took her class, got another A in it. And this woman, my senior year, at the time, I still didn't know if I was going to college. I didn't even know how to apply for college. I'm gonna be honest, I still don't. Somebody applied for me. But she said, Kevon, not only can you go to college, but you must go to college. And the words stuck with me through everything I have done in my life. Kevon, not only can you achieve greatness, but you must achieve it. Not only can you graduate from college, but you must. Because she realized that it wasn't about me. I told her how my mother and father didn't graduate from high school. So she knew it wasn't about me. It was about the people under me. It was about my cousins around me. It was about my friends and family. It was about the family that I will one day have. And she knew that. And every single day at 9 a.m., she would make me call all 12 colleges I applied to and say, hey, this Kevon Lee, are you guys going to accept me? Sorry, Kevon, we haven't looked at the application. Okay, cool. I'll call back tomorrow. And I did that every single day for a month at 9 a.m. sharp. She was building consistency for me. I got accepted to every college except one I applied to. But guess what, guys? That's their loss. So I walked up to that teacher that said I wouldn't go to college, and I showed her my acceptance letters, and I said, I told you I can make it. And I realized that I can never let somebody's opinions of me be my reality. She said I wouldn't go to college. That's cool. Now I'm in a master's program. And I'm pretty sure she don't have a master's. Now you're looking at me right now, and I want to give you a little snippet of all my story. Well, some of my story. You're looking at me right now. You're like, oh, he's a little buff, you know, rocking the shirt. He must be nice looking. But I wasn't always like this. Actually, as a kid, I was bullied. And then when I'm talking about bully, I'm talking about every day I used to go home and cry. See, people didn't know exactly what I went through. They didn't know I was in foster care. They didn't know I was homeless. They didn't know that my gourmet meal I didn't even eat steak. I'm talking about like medium rare steak, not in a burger, until I got to college. Didn't even know what it was. Every single month on the third day of the month, we'll eat McDonald's because that was my gourmet meal. And so I was 300 pounds. And one day I decided, you know what, Kevon? You're going to count how many times you get called fat. Because people didn't call me by my name. So I went to school one day and I said, okay, let's count. 1, 5, 25, 39. To me, it wasn't a bad day. Only 39 times I got called fat and not my name. Okay, cool. We good with that. I got to football practice. And although I consider these people my brothers, they didn't know that every single time they called me fat, it was like hitting a nail at a balloon and I was going to pop. I got called fat 107 times in one day. 107 times I didn't get called my name. 107 times. And when my grandmother picked me up, took me home, she went into her room, I went into the kitchen. I said, you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of living a life where I'm not seen for who I am. So I grabbed the biggest knife in the room. In the kitchen. I grabbed the biggest knife and I thought about stabbing myself in the stomach. And as I was about to stab myself, my hand went numb. I dropped the knife and God said, Kevon, don't do this. And I said, you don't understand everything I go through. I go through this every single day. You don't understand. And he said, Kevon, you have a purpose. And I said, what is my purpose? And he said, the same thing that gets you in trouble, your voice. But at the time, I didn't care. So I grabbed the knife again. And as I was about to stab myself, I heard Kevon. My grandmother never called me Kevon. She called me baby. The one word I wanted to hear, I finally heard it after 107 times of being stabbed in the back. My grandmother finally said my name. And then a year later, I ended up graduating from college. She was right there graduated from high school. She was right there next to me, and she seen me go off to college. But if it wasn't for that teacher that told me, Kevon, not only can you go to college, but you must go to college, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be in the positions I am today. I wouldn't be advocating for youth. I wouldn't be speaking on a statewide, hopefully soon a national level. I wouldn't be doing that. But she was the one mentor that I needed in my life. And ever since I realized what a mentor was, I wanted to walk in everybody's footsteps. I wanted to literally learn from everybody. And then once I graduated from college, I knew that I couldn't stop there. Even though it was hard, even though I knew I would probably go in debt, so what? I need education because I realized education is something my mentor always tell me, that education would change the whole fabric of your family. Education is changing my family. Education is something that we need. It's crazy, and I don't even like school, guys. I really don't. I'm not good at it either. I just work hard. But I say that all to say that the opportunities that I am in my life is because of the mentors, like Miss Brenda Dowdy. She's seen me. She's seen something in me that probably at the time I didn't even see in myself. And she guided me to who I am right now. She put me in positions to advocate for youth. And this is what I love doing. I love speaking. Like I said, my mouth used to get me in trouble, but now I'm using it to advocate. I love doing it. And we need to help more youth do that. A lot of people don't understand that everybody can't be motivated like Kevon. Everybody isn't like me, but we got to help them get to that point. Because at one time I wasn't at that point. And I know what they're feeling. They're feeling that they're doubtful. They're feeling that they can't achieve anything. Why? Because their family probably haven't. The people that are around them haven't. But we have an obligation to them, not us. It ain't about, like I said, it ain't about us. Like my counselor told me, it's not about me. It's about other people. And that's for us to give back. And if that's what funding, then it needs to be done. More kids are going to college, graduating, changing the dynamics, the paradigms of their families. That's what we need. We need to help our youth. I'm still a youth too. I'm 24. I only got like 2 more years of this. But we need, guys, I'm emphasizing this. Not only do we need, we must. There's no other option. If we don't do that, we're not doing our job. We're not doing what we said we're going to do, and that's to serve the youth. So I'm challenging everybody who's watching this to go make a difference in the lives of the youth that you serve. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kevon, for sharing your life story and to bringing full circle the reason why we're having this town hall today about the resources for our youth and sharing the struggles that you went through and how words actually can affect people, even though sometimes people don't understand what those words actually and how they have the impact on individuals that they're talking to. I want to thank you and just make sure that we're lifting you up, right? And all that you're doing. Reach out to us. If we could be of any help, any service, let us know. But again, man, thank you for sharing that story, that true life story about how impact and these resources are vital to people in our community. Let's give them another round of applause there.
Thank you,
giving
guys.
us the true aspect. Thank you, Kavan. I want to thank you for that and all of our presenters here today. We have a little bit of time left and we want to go through some of the questions. So now we'll begin with our question and answer portion of our discussion. The following questions were pre-selected from over 100 submissions to my office. The first question: as the chair of the Assembly Select Committee on Youth Homelessness in San Bernardino County, how do your legislative priorities support young adults facing homelessness and alleviate the housing crisis overall? Well, we talked about a bill that we introduced, AB 2663, that establishes the Youth Acceptance Project. And that's a 5-year program that would focus on those that are out there. This pilot program would require Department of Social Services to contract with family builders by adoption to provide advocacy and therapeutic style support and intervention services to specifically the LGBTQ youth that are suffering in our community. So we continue to see those spikes moving forward. Another piece of legislation that I introduced and is now part of the law, AB 2112, creates for the first time in the state's history an Office of Suicide Prevention that's able to dive into the demographics to bring resources to those demographics that drastically need the resources that are needed in our community. We also are moving forward on a budget request this year for $5 million that would continue to move forward and address the diversion programs for our youth to ensure that they understand there's opportunities to divert them from going down the pipeline of the prison system. So we continue to work on all those facets that are there. The next question is for Kelly, Ms. Brenda Dowdy and Kevon. How can peers, teachers, and other school faculty support homeless youth? Can faculty support homeless youth in their educational endeavors? Kelly, do you want to go first?
I definitely can. Thank you, Assembly Member. One way that we can support homeless youth in their educational endeavors is by making sure they're connected to local agencies that can support their, that can actually provide them with educational resources. I work for the Department of Rehabilitation, and that is one of our focuses, is making sure that the youth get access to those resources. Their early intervention is key, not just starting as when they become a senior, but starting maybe in their freshman year, even in their 8th grade year. Put that mindset of going to college, as Kavan said earlier in his wonderful speech about his life. It's important education is important. It definitely can change the trajectory of your life, your family's life, and it decreases that generational poverty. So connecting youth with their with local resources and agencies, scholarship programs, letting them know that there's things out there for them to be able to go to college, not to have so much debt, because I know that is a big concern. But there are local agencies out there, such as the Department of Rehabilitation, that can assist them in providing educational assistance as far as tuition, books, those are things that they need for success.
Thank you for that. Ms. Dowdy.
Yes, I think educators need to continue to empower our youth, mentor and provide them support and the resources that they need to be successful, whether it's a CTE program, ROP program, workforce development. There's tons of agencies that have those resources and throughout the state. And I think that educators need to make sure that we're connecting the kids to those resources, not just saying, here it is, and leaving them. I was at a meeting the other day, and a young man said, I have a job now. I didn't know how to fill out the application. I didn't know how to apply for my benefits. But because of the support, I was able to get this stuff done, So sometimes we have to walk them through. We can't just walk them to the line and leave them. We have to walk them through the resources. And as our kids always say, that they need for you to tell them maybe 1,000 times. You're telling them 1 or 2 times and you say, I already told you. is not enough for them because they have so much on their mind. You know, where I'm going to sleep tonight, what clothes am I going to wear, which friend am I going to borrow clothes from, how am I going to get some food? So please don't give up on our youth. Continue to ask those questions to see what they need, and let's not throw stuff at them. You know, a lot of times people who are disconnected from youth, they make up the rules and the policies for how we need to service our kids, and it's not what the kids may need. So please have the kids at the table at the beginning of your conversations, not at the end, so that we make sure that we're giving them what they need and not what we think they need.
Thank you, Ms. Dottie. Great words. And now, Kevon, would you like to answer that question also?
Yes, I would definitely say just how they said, connect them with what they need. And what I mean by that is try to connect them with those resources early, because like I said, I didn't even know how to graduate. I mean, not graduate. I didn't even know how to apply for college, and I was a senior. And to this day, I still don't know how to do that CSU application. But my point is that teaching them early about that process, teaching them early about jobs, how to apply for a job, how to make a resume, instead of waiting until they graduate from high school, because at that point, it's like you just threw them in the woods at that point. So just helping them with those resources at a younger age, and the ones that we identify, you know, probably around 9th grade, help them out, because they will need all that. We all need all that. And also, I'll say on a deeper level, in order for a homeless youth to trust you, you have to win their heart. At the end of the day, you have to win their heart, because if you don't, they won't listen to you. Like I said, that educator, she won my heart. I still talk to her today. And that was 5-6 years ago. I still talk to her today. We still meet her for lunch, and she's just an amazing person. And because of people like her, I'm here right now. So winning the hearts of our youth are, to me, it's like one of the most important things that we could do.
Thank you. Thank you all for answering that question. Our next question is, youth experiencing or at a risk for homelessness experience higher rates of mental health challenges. Are there any mental health resources designated specifically for youth experiencing homelessness? I think Dre from Tay, can you speak to that?
Absolutely. And I want to go back to what Kevon said about establishing trust. The biggest barrier that we have with our youth who are coming out of any of our system of care is treating their mental health issues, right? And there's always this stigma about mental health. Well, I don't have a mental health diagnosis. I'm not going to see that psychiatrist. I'm not crazy. And the biggest thing is establishing trust with the provider so the youth will come, right? The very first cohort of youth we had when we opened our TAY centers in 2007 were youth on the street in San Bernardino that heard about the TAY center. And with the TAY center, they heard we had a shelter provider program, right? But the key was you had to go to TAY and sign up for TAY and get all the counseling services. With the counseling services came the housing component, right? The very first youth that we got in our TAY centers were all those kids that were on the street that came to TAY, got the counseling, and guess what? They were telling all of their peers about the TAY center and all of the TAY center programs, and they access all of the programs. And you got to remember, the TAY center is developed by youth for youth. So all of our delivery is based on how they want us to provide the programming, right? They're at the table in every decision we make. When we started the TAY, the very first 2 employees we hired were 2 transition age youth that helped develop the program, okay? We don't do anything in our TAY center services without including our youth in the project, in the program, in the delivery system. So what Kevon said about that trust factor, we've instilled the trust with all of our TAY partners and members across the county. So in answer to your question, Assemblymember Ramos, all of our homeless cohort, the mental health programs comes right with it. So it's one without the other, they're together. And the youth that are involved are the ones that are promoting mental health. I take youth all the time to talk to other youth and to speak at engagements to talk about how they got through their mental health challenge, how they're still in it and dealing with it, and how they're promoting that, getting mental health support is a good thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And our final question is, how can community members access the local resources related to unhoused youth? Dre, sounds like it's right up your alley again.
It is. And usually what happens about unhoused youth, they're on the street. So they're talking to their friends, they're talking to the homie, like, hey, where are you staying tonight? Hey, I got connected to the Taste Center. They got some programs. You might want to call them. I can't tell you how many calls that I get from youth on the street that call me like, I'm homeless. I'm on the street. Do you have housing? I got housing, but check it out. You got to come join the Taste Center, right? And the Taste Centers across the region, Victorville, Barstow, Yucca Valley, Ontario, all of us operate the same exact way. So when the community members call, they find out. And Assemblymember Ramos, I got to give the state a shout out because we have our homeless assistance money that comes from the state that has a youth mandatory 10% cut aside, right, to house youth who are at risk of homelessness. This is allowing us to house and provide support for those youth that are on the street and those families that can access that support, that money. And that was a huge benefit to us to help those unhoused, those on the street, those at risk that might not qualify for our full service partners and have that diagnosed mental health illness, but they still can access services and get another degree of housing support. So it's all about, like, I'm going back to what Kayvon said. It's all about establishing that trust. They know we're trustworthy. They know we're not going to turn them in. We're going to help them. And we don't want to turn them in to the law enforcement or the CFS. We want to work with them, right? And so that's how we kind of get in, and we work with all of our partners. I don't have my partners from CFS on this line, Children and Family Services, but we are connected at the hip with Children and Family Services and the ILP youth, the foster youth, the extended foster care youth. We're working like every other day on helping to cut down that recidivism of those kids going back into the system of care or back on the street.
I want to thank you, Andre, for answering that question, and also to all the contributors here to this town hall that we've put together on homelessness. But it starts the stage for us to continue to advocate for our homeless youth out in San Bernardino County and the state and the nation. Hearing firsthand experiences from Kayvon, from the experiences that he went through, and to hear that from him, real life stories that are there. But he's also a voice of so many people, so many youth that are out there that are going through similar situations that deserve to have our voices speak up for them in the circles that we're in. So let's continue to listen and stand side by side with our youth that are out in our community, and in particularly our homeless youth that need so much resources that we need to get those resources to them. And those know that when we were on the County Board of Supervisors, we established the Homeless Youth Task Force. But we also brought in the peer-to-peer component of those that were formerly homeless to come in and lead the discussion so that we were more open to hear from them firsthand of what programs could work and where they should be at, where we should be focusing at. And that's the voice that we have to be open to. So I want to thank all our panelists, and especially Kayvon, for bringing full circle that voice of those that still need those resources in our community. And I want to thank those that have taken the time to join us within this town hall on the social media platforms. Let's continue to be a voice and stand side by side with our homeless youth in the state of California and in San Bernardino County. Thank you all for attending and for your participation.